What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Mint Hunter Comics, and today I'm delving into my personal experience and personal favorite DC comics that you probably haven't heard of. Or if you've heard of them, you probably haven't read them. I'm not even talking underrated, because to me, underrated would be like Batman the Cult and Garth Ennis's Hitman run. No, we're going even deeper than that. I'm giving you 10 comics that I just totally love. They're not keys, they're not special at all, but they are fantastic. I want you guys to list 0 through 10 which of these you actually have read down below. Or let me know a comic book that you love, not for the cover and not for any notoriety. What's a random book that you just read to death because you loved it so much? Let's get this started. So guys, these are in no particular order whatsoever. I'm going to start you off with Batman Black and White, the 1996 volume, issue number 4. Alright, so if you guys don't know what Batman Black and White is, essentially it's a collection of little short 5, 6, 7 page Batman stories that started with volume 1 in 1996. Issue 4 has about 5 stories crammed into it, including one short I absolutely love by Denny O'Neil and art by Brian Stelfreeze that you really don't want to miss. Like I said, there's a few great little mini-series in this one comic, but it's the opening of the comic, just the first 8 pages, that is so good that it's making its way onto this list. This is a story written and drawn by Bolland, and you have to remember, at this point in Bolland's career, he was only doing cover art, so it's pretty cool to get some interior paneling. It follows the narrative of a deranged Gotham citizen that says he's been good his whole life, and in order to appreciate being good even more, he has to do one bad thing. Even by page 2, we see the full extent of his underlying psychopathic tendencies, as he states that he captured a girl and left her in a well to starve, declaring that that wasn't enough, that he wants to kill someone famous, he wants to go after Batman. The rest of the following 4 pages is just him talking about Batman as if he knows him deeply, fantasizing about what Batman might be up to right now, and in the end, announcing his foolproof plan by killing Batman. It's just a super eerie, chilling, mini little story that Bolland put together that says more in 8 pages than some stories take to tell in an entire omnibus. Luckily for you guys, you can find this in 50-cent bins, even if it might leave you feeling a bit disturbed. I obviously highly recommend all of these, but especially this next one, Spectre number 5. Okay, this issue is seriously awesome, and the imagery is just dark as anything. This is one of those stories that makes you say, did they just do that? The story starts showing a kidnapped boy buried 6 feet underneath the ground. The kidnappers, unfortunately, were involved in an accident, leaving the last remaining tie to knowing the boy's whereabouts dead. The police unit calls upon Jim Corrigan, the Spectre, to see if he can use his abilities to reach the land of the dead to find this kidnapper in regards to the whereabouts of this kidnapped boy, as this is their last hope of finding out. Spectre travels through purgatory, only to find he is not there, bringing him to hell. Introduce some grotesque imagery. In one of the greatest depictions of hell since Dante's Inferno, this issue's got it all. Spectre comes face to face with the devil, asking, "I need the soul of this kidnapper." Satan, of course, refuses to give him over. This in turn comes to an awesome battle between the Spectre and the devil himself in his house of hell. The Spectre harnesses the power of the unavenged murdered dead to power through Satan's power. He literally pulls the soul of this kidnapper out of the devil himself and leaves the devil lying defeated. With some eerie last few taunts to Spectre, the devil tells him that he's part of a prophecy, that he is truly a demon instead of a servant to heaven. Refusing to believe Satan's lies, he walks out of hell, gets the information he needs from the kidnapper, and tosses him back into the burning pits behind him. This is just insane. Back in reality in the hospital, he is briefly able to reanimate the dead kidnapper in order to give up the information on the child's whereabouts to the police, culminating in one of the best detective meets supernatural stories I've ever read. I highly recommend this grotesque yet fantastic Spectre story. Up next is one that I just reread last week, and it's the same beat-up copy that I've had since 1995 or whatever. Green Lantern Volume 3, Annual Number 4. Man, you can tell how unknown this comic is just by how hard it is for me to find some pictures. Essentially, it's the Green Lantern universe's version of Freaky Friday. Hal Jordan, aka Parallax at the time, kind of testing out his more villainous role, botches an experiment with some lanterns at the same time Kyle Rayner is charging up, and they switch bodies and lives. But luckily the writers didn't choose to make this issue all funny. It's actually quite heavy. It shows each character living each other's world in a more idyllic setting. Kyle Rayner is able to stop the explosion of Coast City. Hal Jordan is dating Alex and is able to prevent her death. Despite knowing he was able to save Coast City and that in this universe things were working out much better, Kyle still knew he needed to get back to reality, even though his girlfriend is dead. Hal Jordan, who recently lost Coast City and everything became evil, is brought back to life by Kyle's girlfriend Alex. And in this issue, we see the true Hal Jordan peeking in from behind Parallax, even if just for a brief moment. Hal Jordan, given this glimpse of love from Alex, is unable to let go, whereas Kyle's able to let it all go. This creates a very interesting dichotomy and a cool ending scene in which they're both back in the present reality. Hal, as Parallax, visits Kyle, who's visiting Alex's grave, and basically says, not everything in this life is set in stone, and he's going to do everything within his power to undo it all. Undo Alex's death, undo the destruction of Coast City, undo Hal Jordan killing all of the Green Lantern Corps. Fantastic Green Lantern 90s issue. Do not sleep on this one. Up next, one of my favorite comics of all time, but it's on no one's radar, JLA 65. Here's one of those ones that my copy just looks like a sock at this point. I've read this thing quite a bit. Essentially what happens is Plastic Man and Batman, yes, that is quite the team up, work together to help a strange metahuman punk to keep him out of the streets and out of trouble. We learn through the issue that this punk isn't just any punk, but he is Plastic Man's son. So we get a perfect blend of, obviously, Plastic Man playing off of Batman's super serious role in a very funny way, but we also get to see a really human side to Plastic Man. For a character that is such a literal clown, it was a really cool blend of tones in this issue. And it's the characterization in this issue, even almost more than the story, which makes this solidly a 10 out of 10 on my list. You really want to check this one out, guys. Really cool. If you want to see Batman being totally Batman, and the hilarity, what happens when he teams up with Plastic Man, this is the one for you. Up next is one on this list that Flash fans might know, but the typical average viewer may not know this book, Flash 182. Who knew that one of Flash's villains, Captain Cold, would have such a rich backstory? Honestly, I certainly didn't, but Jeff Johns decided that he would have one, and this issue gives it all. Interestingly, the entire issue follows Captain Cold and his entire upbringing and what made him such a cold dude. This thing always felt like a Captain Cold comic to me rather than a Flash comic. To tell you the truth, I can't even remember if Flash is in this comic, maybe even just mentioned, and it's just really solid. It goes over why he's afraid to show any emotion, and it's a pretty cool reveal. Up next, I'm touching on one of the most criminally underrated and kind of forgotten runs from the 90s, Robin, issue 46. To be honest, I knew I was going to include this run on here, and there's so many great issues from it, so I kind of just picked one. Here's one that I remember reading a lot. This is issue 46, and it's notable by what Robin takes away through this issue. At the start of the issue, Tim Drake's in a little bit of trouble with his father and Batman. He seems to be struggling with, am I Tim Drake or am I Robin? And he's having a hard time being proud of either. It seems like the weight of the world's on his shoulders over the issues with his girlfriend, how Batman perceives him, and trying to please his dad by preparing for college. While he's in deep thought, he's interrupted by a police chase, which leads him to a young gang member his same age. Turns out, Tim knows him and has been on the hunt for him for a while. He follows him to a warehouse down by the water. Young L, the gang member Tim's age, starts opening fire on him. The floorboards loosen up under the kid and he falls, only to have a big beam land on him, almost suffocating him. During this, water's seeping in from the heavy rains, and Tim needs to save this kid. In these moments, this hard-edged gang member kid loses all sense of ego and becomes a kid again, wanting to live, wanting to lead a fulfilling life. Robin does everything he can for him, but he just doesn't have superpowers. He is not able to lift the log, and the water continues to come in. Eventually, he loses him, and Tim walks away, putting his problems into context. The story ends with Tim being angry that he couldn't do more, and is regretful of his holier-than-thou attitude towards this boy, as he realizes there wasn't that much that separated him from this boy. I always liked this Robin run because a lot of the issues center around the idea that you don't know everything, you don't have all the answers. And it's furthermore why I think that Tim Drake's character is fantastic, complicated, and unique, and that's why I think he's the best Robin. Up next, Birds of Prey, number 8. I'm sure you guys are noticing by now, my favorite stories are the one with great characterization. This one's no slouch. This one focuses primarily on Nightwing trying to score a date with Barbara, who considers it more of a friend hangout. They've always had an interesting romantic back and forth, but Nightwing hopes for more. What's memorable about this issue is all the tragedy in their lives that they've overcome. This isn't a dark Batman issue where he can't get over his past and he makes a promise to himself as a boy. This is two adults recognizing their trauma. For Nightwing, it's losing his parents. For Barbara, it's being crippled. And both of them are well over it. They're living authentic, happy lives together. But does the relationship still work when everyone's moved on? There is some fantastic art in this. One of my favorite panels is Nightwing taking Barbara to the circus, where he lets her fly one last time up in the trapeze. This short little issue is filled with a lot of beautiful moments of these two, and really sets the stage for what we know of their relationship at that time. I always remembered it for its positivity, and for its choice of throwing away the tragedy and replacing it with acceptance and growth. Awesome issue, guys. Another annual coming at you. This time we have Justice League Annual number 1. Here's a comic that gives some well-needed love to Martian Manhunter, a character especially in the 90s which was terribly underused. To be honest, I actually think it's one of the best Martian Manhunter stories out there. As a quick side note, this comic has some great and hilarious Guy Gardner versus Batman banter. Essentially, a zombie-like virus thing infects everyone on Earth, including all of the Justice League. It successfully invades pretty much everybody except for Martian Manhunter, who's able to stay away. Using Dr. Fate's helmet, he learns the secrets and vulnerability of this germ and this virus, and decides to attack it head-on. Now, what's interesting about this issue is it comes up more than a few times that he's seen as an outsider because he is an off-looking alien. Well, in the end, it turns out that his alien cell structure was able to save the day. Learning this through the Dr. Fate helmet, he asks the germ to enter his body. Discovering that his cell structure is able to take the virus without passing it on to anyone else, he assumes entire responsibility and control over this disease, and is able to carry this burden entirely through himself while setting everyone else free. This was a cool issue for a lot of the banter. I really liked the dialogue in this, but it did have some really great action, and it really boiled down to Martian Manhunter, and I liked his sacrifice and his angle on it. People need to remember, this is a smart dude that's essentially as strong as Superman. Second to last one I'm going to give you, Grayson, number 12. Here's a book I loved a ton when it came in, and admittedly I had to reread it to make sure that it works as a standalone issue, and it actually does. It does take place in the events of New 52, and it's in the midst of Dick Grayson playing super spy to an organization called Spiral. Meanwhile, everyone thinks that Nightwing is dead, so this issue was Nightwing coming back to Gotham, as Spiral granted him 24 hours to say his true goodbyes. He meets Jason Todd and Tim Drake, both unable to believe that he's alive and well, and disappointed that he lied. Batman was always the liar, never Nightwing. He leaves them both with 2 batarangs, which ends up being significant. Later in the issue, he meets Barbara Gordon. Every time he meets one of these characters, there's awesome word bubbles that pop up on the screen of exact quotes between Nightwing and each character. Upon meeting Barbara, he gives her another token. He gives her the actual bar from Birds of Prey 8 that I mentioned earlier in this video, talking about when he took her flying on the trapeze. Finally, he meets up with Damien, who has my favorite reaction out of the bunch, finding that Dick is actually truly alive. They share some nice moments before Dick, once again, entrusts another gift to Damien, this time the hilt of a sword. It's revealed that each one of these gifts that he gave to each member of the Bat family spelled out a code to help hack into Spiral, causing this issue to perfectly match a beautiful return to Gotham with some excellent cameos and wonderful moments between all the Bat family members, while still being able to tell the story that the Grayson series wanted to tell. It ends up being a well-written spy thriller amidst awesome Bat family mythos. I highly recommend reading this if you're interested in seeing Nightwing's relationship with the rest of the members of the Bat family and how well they work as a team. And the last one for our list today, guys, by the way, if you liked this series, I can do a lot more. I've read my fair share of DC books. Flash, number 0. Alright, so here is just an awesome time-traveling story. This is Flash Wally West version. He's trapped in the Speed Force, and he's moving uncontrollably through time. It hasn't been like the other times he's been in the Speed Force. He's completely intangible to his surroundings and keeps getting popped into moments of his life, but he's not able to be seen. He's basically a ghost. Picture like Ebenezer Scrooge watching over his past. With each stop, we're given a glimpse into more and more of Wally West as a character and his origins as Flash. Other stops include him becoming the Flash, finding out about Barry Allen's death, forming the Teen Titans, him gaining his powers, and stuff like arguing with his parents. He regains a bit more of himself with each stop, becoming more than a ghost and becoming an actual tangible person that you can touch. It culminates in this childhood scene where he realizes that he was waiting for a stranger that forever changed his life, only to realize that he was now the stranger visiting the young Wally West. This was just very cleverly done. Flash convinces the young Wally that his whole life is ahead of him, and with this, feeling sure of himself, the Flash is able to control the Speed Force, forcing it to propel him back to the proper time. What a solid single issue. I'd show you my comic, but I read it so much it's missing its cover. So here's the thing, guys, I love DC so much, and I've read a ridiculous amount of comics over the years, so I could keep doing this as a series. I am thinking of also doing a top 10 Batman comics you probably haven't heard of. Let me know in the comments what you'd be interested in. As always, guys, don't forget to hit like on your way out, and keep on collecting.